Have you ever noticed that sometimes your kindness isn't kindness at all? It's an open invitation for people to use you. You give in, you understand, you forgive, you make the effort. And in the end, the reward is always the same. People treat you as available, not valuable. And the most dangerous part is that you convince yourself you're being a good person, when in reality you're leaving your dignity at the door so no one feels uncomfortable. That isn't virtue. It's poor judgment with a smile. Stay with me, Gabriel here. Welcome to the Stoic Garden. Today we're going to walk through 8 Stoic lessons to stop being nice out of reflex and start being truly intelligent, with boundaries, presence and self-respect without needing to become cold. By the end you'll know how to give without giving yourself away, how to say no without guilt, and how to stay loyal to your values even if it costs you applause. Because the last lesson is the one that separates someone who respects themselves from someone who lives begging for approval. Let's begin. Lesson 1. Kindness without judgment makes you easy to use. There's a huge difference between being kind and being easy. Kind people choose when to give, who to give to, and how far to go. People who are nice by reflex act out of fear, habit, or the need to be liked. And that can be smelled from a mile away. Not because you're weak, but because you were trained to confuse dignity with service. Look at how it works in real life. You help once, twice, 3 times, and at first they applaud you. Then they stop thanking you and simply start looking for you. The favor turns into an obligation. Your availability becomes someone else's right, and the day you finally can't help, they look at you like you failed them. That's when you understand the trick. They weren't valuing your kindness. They were taking advantage of your lack of judgment. And no, it's not because there are so many bad people. It's because you're sending the wrong signals. If you give yourself away before someone earns it, if you justify every boundary, if you feel guilty for prioritizing yourself, you're training the world to treat you like a resource, as if you were a tool in a box, not a person with a life of your own. And then you're surprised when people use you, when you presented yourself as something useful. Stoic kindness isn't saying yes to everything. It's acting with virtue, with intention, with a clear head that refuses to be blackmailed by the emotion of the moment. Help, yes. Support, yes. But not at the cost of breaking yourself inside so others can stay comfortable outside. That isn't nobility. That's abandoning yourself. And here's the question that's uncomfortable but clarifying. Are you truly being generous, or are you buying acceptance with favors? Because when your kindness comes from the fear of being rejected, you're not giving. You're negotiating. You're paying so people won't leave you, so they won't get upset, so they won't think badly of you. And when you pay like that, the price always goes up. A person who lacks judgment with their kindness ends up resentful. They smile, but inside they're accumulating anger. They say it's fine, but it isn't. What's really happening is that you're betraying yourself in small installments. And the worst part is that later you explode at the person who least deserves it, while with the one who uses you, you remain understanding. Convenient for everyone, except you. Start learning the difference. Some people ask for help because they're going through a rough time, and some people ask because you always say yes. Some people are grateful and take care of you too, and some only appear when they need something. You don't need to become paranoid. You just need to become aware, because judgment doesn't make you a bad person. It makes you free. Your kindness needs doors, not collapsed walls. It needs conditions, not because you're calculating, but because you respect yourself. When you put value on your own time, your energy, your presence, the world adjusts. And if someone gets offended because you stopped being easy to use, perfect. That's the proof they didn't love your kindness. They loved your submission. And if you want to break that pattern without drama, speeches, or endless explanations, there's a tool that gives you control instantly. A short, simple word that feels almost magical the moment you finally dare to use it. Lesson 2. Saying no builds immediate respect. Not because the world applauds you for setting boundaries, but because the world finally understands that there are rules with you. People don't respect someone who is always available. They respect someone who can choose. And choosing means that sometimes your answer will be no, even if you say it with a friendly face, even if your tone is gentle, even if you don't want to look like the villain in the story. Your problem isn't that you don't know how to say no. Your problem is that you say it with guilt. You say it with a nervous smile, you wrap it in excuses, You turn it into a whole story so the other person won't feel uncomfortable. And then the no loses its weight. It becomes negotiable. The other person hears your explanation and thinks, perfect, if I push a little more, they'll give in. And you give in, of course, because you believed your own performance. Saying no isn't building a wall. It's drawing a line. It's affirming your right to decide about your time, your body, your energy, your space. Some people will react badly, and surprise, surprise, they're usually the ones who benefited most from your lack of boundaries. They'll call you selfish, difficult, cold, dramatic. Not because you are, but because you changed the terms without warning. And in the middle of that discomfort, the mental trap appears. You start thinking that if you say no, you'll lose love, opportunities, friendships, respect. But tell me honestly, what respect were you earning when you swallowed everything and always put yourself at the end of the line? What kind of relationship is it where your value depends on how many times you let yourself be loaded with other people's weight? A well-spoken no doesn't need volume. It needs firmness. A clear sentence without decoration, without justifying yourself as if you were asking permission to exist. And yes, at first your voice may shake, because your body is used to obeying before choosing. But every no you hold is a brick in your self-esteem. A real one, not the kind that collapses when someone gets upset. Ralph Waldo Emerson, someone who spoke a lot about moral self-reliance without asking the crowd for permission, summed it up in a line that fits perfectly here. Trust in your own conscience is worth more than the unstable applause of public opinion. You don't need to know his biography to understand it. If your no depends on the other person celebrating it, then it isn't a no. It's a request in disguise. Intelligent people don't use no to punish. They use it to protect. They protect their mind, their schedule, their peace, their sense of dignity. And the curious thing is that when you start protecting yourself, you stop attracting those who look for open doors and start attracting those who respect boundaries. The filter activates on its own without you needing to play the police. Now let's be clear. Saying no doesn't mean being rude. You can be kind, even warm, but not soft. Kindness doesn't mean giving yourself away. Kindness means treating others with humanity while treating yourself with respect. Because if your kindness costs you your backbone, then it isn't kindness. It's fear with good manners. And once you master this, when your no comes out without guilt and your yes comes from choice, another common form of manipulation begins to fall apart. Those people who push you through emotion with smiles, with victimhood, with soft pressure. That's why the next lesson isn't about becoming hard. It's about becoming impossible to manipulate. Third lesson. Firm kindness eliminates manipulation. Because a manipulator isn't afraid of your anger, they're afraid of your clarity. Your anger feeds them. It gives them an excuse, a scene, material to flip the story and make you look like the unreasonable one. Your clarity, on the other hand, leaves them without tools. And here's the detail many people struggle to accept. You can be kind and still be impossible to bend. Manipulation relies on a very old trick. They push you through guilt, through pity, through the, come on, don't be like that, through that tone of, I would never do this to you. And since you were trained to be proper, to avoid making people uncomfortable, you swallow what you feel and give in. But when your kindness comes with firmness, the game ends. Because you no longer react emotionally, you respond with judgment. You don't argue, you don't attack, you don't over-explain. You simply hold your position like someone holding a door with their foot, not even straining, just decided. And this is where it feels strange at first, because you believed that to maintain a boundary you had to become hard, cold, distant. You don't. You just need to be clear. That doesn't work for me. I'm not going to do that. That's not something I accept. Say it without venom but with weight. It's a powerful mix. Kindness lowers the tension, and firmness prevents the invasion. It's like looking someone calmly in the eye and saying, this is as far as it goes. In the middle of pressure, ask yourself something very simple, without drama. Does this person want to understand me, or do they want to move me? Because if what they want is to move you, it doesn't matter how beautifully you explain it. They'll keep pushing. That's where your firmness becomes a natural filter. Someone who respects you needs only one sentence. Someone who uses you will be bothered by any boundary, even the most polite one in the world. The Stoics had a healthy obsession with this. Hecato of Rhodes, One of those teachers who spoke about character like someone talking about training said something along the lines of making every choice as if your character depended on it, because it does. And that's exactly what this is. Every time you hold a boundary calmly, you're shaping your character. You're making it clear, inside and out, that you're not an object that can be negotiated with a little guilt. Ironically, when you're kind without firmness, you get manipulated more. When you're firm with kindness, you get respected more. Not because you're stronger, but because people can no longer grab you through emotion. Your kindness stops being an open door and becomes a dignified exchange. You don't need to change your essence, you just need to protect it. And once you learn that, you run into the next trap that quietly destroys many people. Not the manipulation of others, but your own manipulation of yourself. The need to keep giving even when nothing ever comes back. Lesson 4. Giving without reciprocity destroys your self-esteem. And be careful. I'm not talking about keeping a notebook of debts like a bill collector. I'm talking about something more basic. That pattern where you're always there, always supporting, always understanding, always covering, always rescuing. And on the other side, there's silence, comfort, and a hand that has become used to being extended. At first, it doesn't hurt because you justify it. They're going through a tough time. They're not good at showing appreciation. I'm just someone who gives. And yes, you can give. That says something good about you. The problem begins when your giving becomes automatic and your dignity becomes optional. Because while you keep giving without limits, a dirty feeling slowly settles inside. The feeling of being taken for granted, of being an endless well that never fills. And when that happens, your self-esteem doesn't break all at once. It wears down. It becomes thin. You become more tolerant of what you don't deserve. You start accepting crumbs with a smile. And then you wonder why you feel empty, why you're irritable, why you no longer enjoy helping the way you used to. It's not that helping is bad. It's that you're helping inside a relationship that only works when you lose. Some people confuse your generosity with your obligation, and worse, you confuse it too. You wake up thinking about what others need. You answer messages out of duty. You say yes automatically, and you end up with no time left for yourself. And when you finally try to stop, guilt shows up like an internal police officer. That voice that says, "How selfish, how ungrateful. How can you change now?" Convenient, isn't it? Your change is always a problem when someone else lives comfortably off your exhaustion. Here's a question worth gold, but ask it when you're in the middle of the impulse, not after you already said yes. Does this person support me when I'm down too, or do they only call when they need solid ground? Because if they only show up to lean on you, it's not a bond, it's use. And you didn't come into this world to be anyone's emotional dock. Reciprocity isn't mathematical, it's directional. You can tell when the other person also cares, also asks, also shows up, also gives back through details, presence, and respect. And if they don't, then your decision becomes simple. Either you keep giving until there's nothing left of you, or you start choosing yourself without needing to become cruel. The right people aren't afraid when you choose yourself. The people who only consume you are. And this connects directly to the next lesson, because many times you don't destroy yourself just by giving, but by explaining, by justifying, by trying to convince the world that your boundary is valid. Lesson 5. Stop justifying yourself to regain your authority, because every time you over-explain without realizing it, you're asking for permission. You're saying, "Please approve my boundary," in a long language full of details, arguments, defenses, and if the other person is used to controlling you, your explanation doesn't sound like clarity to them. It sounds like a crack. Most people don't wear themselves out saying yes. They wear themselves out explaining why they said no. "It's just that I have a lot of work. I'm tired. I can't today. It's just that..." And off you go, building a thesis so the other person won't get offended. Meanwhile, they're not even listening. They're waiting for the opening to argue back. Because when you justify yourself, you open a debate. And when you open a debate, you give the other person the judge's seat. There's a specific moment when this becomes ridiculous. When you hear yourself explaining your life like it's a report, and at the end you still feel guilty anyway. That's when it hits you. You weren't trying to communicate. You were trying to be absolved, and no one is going to absolve you for living your life. No one. In the middle of that impulse to explain, stop for a second and look at yourself from the outside. Why do you think your boundaries need to be acceptable to everyone else? Since when does your time have to pass through customs to be valid? People with judgment don't justify their dignity. They exercise it. And those who respect you understand without drama. Those who don't get upset precisely because they no longer have access to you the way they used to. This isn't about becoming cold. It's about stopping the habit of handing your power away on a silver platter. A short, calm sentence, without defense. I can't. That doesn't work for me. I'm not going to do that. And then you stay quiet. That silence after the boundary is the muscle you've been missing, because that's where the other person tests whether they can still push you. And that's where you decide whether you go back to being the same as always, or finally, hold your ground. At first it will feel scary because your mind will tell you that you're being harsh. You're not. You're being clear. And clarity, when it doesn't come with guilt, feels like authority. Not arrogance, authority, presence. Someone who doesn't need to convince anyone in order to respect themselves. And once you stop justifying yourself, you notice something interesting. Not everything deserves your response. Not everything deserves your energy. Not everything deserves your attention. Which brings us to the next lesson. Lesson 6. Choosing your battles protects your energy and your reputation. Because some people live looking for your reaction as if it were entertainment. They throw you a comment, drop a passive-aggressive remark, push you a little, and wait for you to jump. And if you jump, they've already won. Not because they were right, but because they moved something inside you. Someone who wants peace doesn't respond to everything, and someone who wants respect doesn't either. Some arguments aren't arguments. They're traps meant to drag you into the mud. They want you tangled up, justifying yourself, raising your voice, explaining the obvious, wasting an entire afternoon on drama that won't matter tomorrow. And if you don't choose carefully, you become a slave to every provocation. Marcus Aurelius, who was an emperor and still reminded himself not to lose his head over nonsense, said it in a very human way. You have power over your mind, not over external events. He didn't say it just to sound wise. He said it because if you don't master that part, it masters you. And in everyday life, those events are often people with quick mouths and weak values. The smart battle isn't the one you win by shouting. It's the one you don't fight at all when it isn't worth it. Sometimes the best response is a neutral look and an okay. And yes, for people who feed on conflict, that's incredibly frustrating. Because you take away their fuel, you don't get hooked. You don't defend yourself, you don't explain, you don't give them the show. Now don't confuse this with swallowing humiliation. Choosing battles doesn't mean tolerating disrespect. It means choosing the ground and the moment. Because if you react in the heat of the moment, you aim at the wrong target and end up looking bad yourself. That's where a question can save your image. Does this deserve my energy, or is it just trying to steal it? Ask that at the right moment, and you become a different person. People who respect themselves understand something that others struggle with. Not everything is fixed by talking. Not everything is fixed by proving your point. Some things are fixed by leaving, with silence, with distance, with consequences. Which leads directly to the next lesson, one of the hardest because it requires real courage. Lesson 7. Leaving at the right time stops disrespect. Because some forms of disrespect don't stop with polite words. They stop when the other person feels the absence. When they realize they no longer have access to you, your attention, your energy, your presence. And yes, leaving hurts at first because your habit is to stay, endure, explain, try to fix it. But look at reality. If someone crosses a line and you stay, even silently, the message is clear. They can. If someone speaks to you with contempt and you respond by trying to be the mature one, the message is clear. They can. If someone uses you as an emotional punching bag and you remain there for love, the message is clear. They can. And then you wonder why it keeps happening, because your presence allowed it. Leaving at the right time isn't running away. It's choosing yourself. It's refusing to stay in places that break you just to prove you're strong. That's a mistake many people confuse with character. Real character isn't tolerating disrespect. It's refusing to negotiate your worth. It's standing up, looking at the situation calmly, and walking away without slamming the door. The slammed door is for the ego. The quiet exit is for your dignity. In that moment, when you feel something starting to rot, ask yourself a question that can save you. What exactly are you waiting for before leaving? A neon sign? A miraculous apology? or for them to finish trampling you so you can finally justify your decision. Because that waiting isn't patience, it's fear of being seen as the bad one. And the ironic part is that the longer you wait, the more expensive leaving becomes. Leaving can be as simple as ending a conversation, not replying to a message loaded with pressure, standing up from a table where someone is disrespecting you behind a smiling mask, creating distance from someone who only reaches out when they need something. You don't need to announce it like an official statement. You leave. That's it. Consequences are a language some people actually understand. And once you learn to leave on time, you become someone difficult to manipulate, because you no longer depend on pleasing everyone in order to stay grounded. That brings us to the final lesson, the one that ultimately decides whether your life is guided by your values or by the mask you wear to fit in. Lesson 8. Real intelligence is loyalty to your values above approval. Because you can learn to say no, set boundaries, choose your battles and leave at the right time, and still remain a slave to the same thing. Applause, the need to be liked, the what will they think, the I don't want to look bad, the maybe I should just adapt. If your compass is other people's opinions, it doesn't matter how strong you become, you'll always live crooked. Approval is like sugar. It gives you a quick hit of relief, but it leaves you more dependent. You get used to being the one everyone likes, the one who never causes problems, the one who always understands, the one who's always there. And the day you act according to your values without asking permission, people look at you strangely. Sometimes they punish you with distance, silence, or gossip. That's when you see who you really were and who the character was that others preferred. Epictetus, who went from being a slave to becoming a teacher of inner freedom, put it in a way that stings but wakes you up. If you want to improve, accept that sometimes people will think you're foolish in external matters. He didn't say that to humiliate you. He said it because the person who lives to please others lives performing, and someone who is always performing eventually gets tired, empty, and betrayed by their own life. Your freedom begins the moment you stop turning your life into a popularity contest. And here's the point many people struggle with. People don't respect you because you're nice. They respect you because you're consistent, because of what you refuse to negotiate, what you refuse to sell, what you refuse to change depending on who's watching. There's a strange, powerful peace that appears when you decide that your behavior doesn't depend on other people's moods. That peace can't be bought. It's built. In the middle of that change, a dangerous temptation appears. Going back to the way things were so people will like you again, so there won't be tension, so everything feels normal. But be honest. What's the point of fitting into places where you have to shrink yourself so your dignity doesn't make others uncomfortable? What kind of love disappears the moment you respect yourself? Real intelligence isn't being the smartest person in the room or the most strategic person in an argument. It's having values and holding them even when it costs you. Being kind without giving yourself away. Being firm without becoming cruel. Giving without betraying yourself. Leaving without hatred. And above all, looking in the mirror and knowing you didn't sell yourself for a little approval. Because when you become loyal to your values, something changes. You no longer need everyone to understand you. You only need to understand yourself and act accordingly. And that, even if it feels uncomfortable at first, eventually puts everything in order. Being kind was never the problem. The problem was being kind without judgment, without backbone, without a filter. Because when your kindness has no limits, it stops being a virtue and becomes permission for people to use you. And today it became clear that real intelligence isn't becoming cold. It's becoming solid. Choosing when to give, when to stay, when to leave, and above all, the price you're willing to pay to be loved. Now it's your turn, in real life where no one applauds you for respecting yourself. The next time someone asks something of you, take a breath and choose instead of reacting. Say no when it's no, and hold it without explaining yourself as if you were on trial. Give where there is reciprocity. Cut off manipulation. And if disrespect appears, leave on time without turning it into a scene. That's how you recover calm, authority, and self-respect. Not with promises, but with decisions. If this video helped bring order to your mind, subscribe and turn on notifications so you can keep training that mindset. And I want to hear from you. Write this phrase in the comments, I am stoic. Also tell me what country you're listening from so we can keep building this garden with people who no longer give themselves away. I'm Gabriel, And this is the Stoic Garden. On the screen, you'll see 2 recommended videos so you can keep going deeper, because this isn't learned in a day, it's practiced. See you in the next one, and remember something simple but decisive. Respect begins the moment you stop begging for it.